Hey everybody, welcome back to Inside the Force. Dave Cottingham here with Hannah Burr. Happy Star Wars Day, Hannah.
Happy Star Wars Day.
How's it going?
It's going well, and how are you?
Doing good. Doing good.
Good.
It is actually Star Wars Day now that we've released this episode. It is the night before, so unfortunately we haven't been able to dive into Star Wars Visions yet, but Star Wars Visions is out now on Disney Plus. I'm excited, a lot more excited, I feel like, for this volume than the first volume. Is that what you're feeling?
I'd say so, just because with the first volume, we didn't really necessarily know what to expect.
True.
But now that we have it, and we're like, oh, we're actually getting more countries, and we're getting a lot more culture, and a lot more international cinema. Oh, heck yeah.
Yeah, it looks really good. The different animation styles this time, not just focused on anime. That's what I'm really excited for. Of course, I'm always going to have these questions of whether or not it's canon or not, and where does it fall into the timeline. I've even seen people mention on social media basically that even though this is non-canon, this is so I don't know if who's determined that, because I don't think Lucasfilm has ever actually come out and said no, this is non-canon. But I think, and I think I mentioned this when we talked about the first volume, I'm more or less looking at this like these are stories that are told within the Star Wars universe. Like if
Right.
you were in the Star Wars universe, these are stories that you're hearing as legends almost. So I like that, and I wish they would just say that. But if it ends up being canon, there's probably versions of it that can be. So that's out there now. Volume 2 on Star Wars Day, Disney Plus. Not sure if we're going to get anything else beyond that, like any more trailers or not. I haven't heard anything about that, so it just doesn't look like it, since we just had Celebration a few weeks ago.
Right. I
Don't really think
so.
Yeah, I don't really think there's going to be much beyond that. So Star Wars Day. Later on, we will talk a little bit more about that. I want to kind of dive in, of course, the things that make Star Wars Day, and what we've done to kind of put these. Obviously, we put this show out. Trying to get another show out there as well. So trying to get some other content out there for you all on Star Wars Day to enjoy, as well as everything else that's happening. So we'll get to there. Let's get through some couple things in news. So one big thing, of course, since we weren't here last week, except through our Beyond the Saga show, was the release of Jedi Survivor.
Yes.
Now, I don't think you've started playing it yet. No.
I have not.
I have started, and it's funny because I saw a tweet just a few hours ago that said, I don't understand how some people are already done with the game. I feel like I've been playing it a lot, and I'm only about halfway through, and I feel the same way. I don't know if I don't even know where I am in the game, because obviously I don't know the end, but I feel like I'm about halfway through. And I mean, I've played a little bit here and there. I haven't sat down and just played for hours and hours, but it's been almost a week now. And I did play a lot in the beginning. I did play a lot on Saturday, but throughout this week, it's been just here and there. And I didn't even touch it last night. So I'm into it. And it's like I kind of told you today, just my spoiler-free review somewhat right now, very, very similar to the first game as far as gameplay, the skills that you do, climbing on stuff and wall walking and the force moves and lightsaber. I mean, it's all relatively the same gameplay. The story is getting very interesting.
Okay.
So that's what's really drawing me into this thing. Because I played this thing on, they have story mode. I just play it on story mode. I'm not worried about spending hours trying to defeat a guy. I just want to get through it and follow along. Now, I think you mentioned something about maybe just kind of watching the cutscenes first, and
Yes.
so we can at least talk about it.
Yes. That's what I do.
I don't even know if there's one. Is there a video out there already?
Oh, there already is.
Oh, really?
There already is. There was, I think, on day 2.
Oh, wow.
Because Zach, my husband, he was like, hey, do you want to see all the cutscenes and see, what the story of this game is? Because it's right here on YouTube.
So you've stayed away from that so far?
I have, but yeah. I will probably watch it in the not too distant future. I started watching a couple people play it just so I could see what the gameplay was like, and yes, based on my observations, it seems incredibly similar to Jedi Fallen Order.
Yeah, and I will say that also I'm in the middle of listening to Jedi Battle Scars.
You need to pick one or the other. You can't do both.
I know, because it's really starting to confuse me a little bit. So just to remind everybody, Battle Scars is the novel that takes place between the games. Mm-hmm. And there's about a 5-year gap between the games. So this takes place somewhere, 2.5 or so, literally right a couple of years before the game. So I'm listening to that, and then I'm listening to that and, driving in my car basically. And then when I sit down and play the game, lately I've been like, wait, is this story from the game or is this from the novel? So I do need to probably stop one or the other. So honestly, I may stop the game for a little bit, get through the book, because it is the events before. Mm-hmm. Because I feel like there is, if you just go from game to game like I did, there's a lot of questions that I feel like are probably answered more in the book.
I can already think of a couple off the top of my head, which I won't share because that's a spoiler. Yeah.
I mean, even the state of our crew here is a lot different than the end of the last game. So I don't know how much I don't know how much they explain that as I go into the game. Mm-hmm. But hasn't been much of it yet. So we'll see. But it is phenomenal, and I'm seeing ratings going out the roof. People are raving about it. Now, the PC version, I heard, had a lot of bugs.
I feel like that seems to be typical, is that whenever there's a PC version of a game, there just tend to be bugs. I feel like that's the story with almost any game that comes out.
And is Zach or you a PC player?
We do have a PC.
And you don't play games on it?
No, we do tend to stick with PlayStation.
PlayStation, okay.
Yeah, but we do have a PC, and
I know. I can't remember who. Somebody I know is a PC gamer.
Yeah, I prefer to play like Mass Effect and those type of games on PC, but I found Jedi Fallen Order. I found that was pretty simple to play on PlayStation. So
yeah. So that's out there right now. Obviously, the game is again getting massive reviews, and a lot of people are loving it. Besides the PC thing, I heard. I think they just came out with a patch too. Anyway, so should be fixed. I did notice there were a couple little things. Like one instance on I have an Xbox, the Xbox X. I think it's the newest one, but I noticed it a couple times. There was that thing where there's just like a wall there, where something didn't render right or something, but oops. Yeah. So I did notice a little bit of that, but once I advanced a little bit, then it went away. So it's fine. Some other news. So anyway, Jedi Fallen Order or Jedi Survivor is out there. Excuse me. So go play that. Mm-hmm. We'll talk about it, probably in the next couple of weeks as we get more and more into it. Of course, then we got to do a Beyond the Saga on Battle Scars.
Of course.
Because you've already got through that already. So other news, one thing that I read today, or actually I read a couple days ago, was, again, not fully confirmed by Lucasfilm, but it is getting reported in Hollywood a lot, is regarding Taika Waititi, who we've talked about for a couple of years now, that has been involved in making a Star Wars film.
Yes.
There's articles running out there saying that he is ready to shoot his film next year. Now, again, he's ready. Not sure if Lucasfilm is ready.
Right.
So we'll see if that's confirmed or when we get that announcement. Because to piggyback off of that article a little bit, if people are following Hollywood a lot, you also know that there is a writer's strike going on right now.
Yes.
Which is very significant to the film industry, television industry. You know, people obviously may or may not know that me and Hannah work in the production world. We're not affected by writers as much because we work on non-union work, and a lot of our stuff is reality show based, which doesn't require a lot of writing. A lot of it's done through the performances on camera.
Or documentary style, we do that too.
Or documentary style, correct. But, you know, we're in Kentucky, and Kentucky is trying to attract a lot of films right now because of our incentive. Mm-hmm. Obviously, that's not going to happen as long as there's a strike going on. So Taika, if he's ready to shoot, I'm assuming he's already done writing the movie.
Right.
So anything that's done and written and been approved, you know, past development, technically it will be shot and be done. For example, Andor, Tony Gilroy, who's writing season 2, has said that the season 2 scripts have been done for a few weeks now, so it is not going to be affected by the writer's strike. Of course, Ahsoka is already in the can. Skeleton Crew, I think, has already been shot, if not getting ready to wrap. Acolyte as well. So it doesn't seem like Star Wars shows, in a way, are going to be that affected. Now, you know, there's rumors out there that Favreau has already written season 4 of Mandalorian, so I don't know how much truth is to that. Mm-hmm. But it seems like, at least through the Acolyte, or even Andor season 2, which we're not going to get till next year, seems like we're okay for the next couple of years at least.
Right.
Bad Batch, I would be surprised if Bad Batch was fully written.
I don't think it was.
Yeah.
The story might have been written.
Right.
But the actual scripts themselves.
Correct. So that one might be delayed possibly. But you know, these writer strikes, the last one happened about 15 years ago. And it lasted, I remember it lasted pretty good while, because shows got canceled. I remember I was in the middle of watching a show called Smallville, if anybody recalls. Smallville got cut short.
Yep. That was so sad.
Yeah, I know, right?
Such a great show.
That because like instead of having whatever 22 episodes, it only had 18 or something like that, because it basically cut the season off. I think 24. I was watching 24 as well for Kiefer Sutherland.
Oh wow.
That season got shortened or canceled. I think actually it got canceled, and then they ended up taking that season and turning into like just a short movie or something like that. So things are going to be affected. If this lasts throughout the summer, your shows in the fall aren't going to be coming back for a while.
Well, also, not even just to mention that, but also it could impact the Star Wars movies they announced.
Very true. Very true, because that they just hired a new writer to rewrite it. So you're right. Mm-hmm. They're not writing the movie now.
Nope.
So it is not probably going to be out next December.
which is fine. I mean, I honestly think that, that I think there's a good cause behind the strike. So, I mean, if it means that they get treated more fairly, then yeah, we can wait.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I haven't read up on really exactly what this one's about. I know the last one about 15 or so years ago, I know that one was mainly because writers weren't getting any royalties from their work. They would just write something and, the studio would buy it or something like that, take it, and then they would just walk away, and they weren't reaping the benefits beyond that. Also, the many different mediums that are out there now, social media and things like that. I think back then they wanted more payments and more rights, protection rights, copyright rights for things on social media and things like that. So, because I think they anticipated social media becoming truly more of a distribution platform, more than just a social media channel, social media channels, because that's what they are now. They're basically a distribution channel. So I don't know what they're arguing for now, if they just want more. I mean, they're obviously entitled to what they believe. So I don't know, but we'll see how
I've been trying to keep up with it, and you could honestly dedicate a whole podcast episode, I think, to just discussing what's going on.
Right. Absolutely. And I'm sure there's many of them out there that are talking about it. Mm-hmm. Because, I think obviously we're talking about Star Wars now, but especially the DC movies and stuff like that they just started redoing now, all that's on hold. Marvel's phases, whatever they're finishing up right now. I think they've talked about movies and stuff that they have in the can, but they got a lot of shows they're working on right now too. So, all that stuff's going to be affected.
Indeed.
Okay.
And then you have AI coming into the whole picture too.
I know, which
not to like open a can of worms, but
which doesn't help them at all.
No.
You're right. That's a whole nother issue, and one that I feel like needs to get taken control of, or else it's gonna put a lot of people out of work.
Oh yeah. I think there's a purpose for it, but people can easily take advantage of it.
100%. Yeah. I think it's gonna go. Unfortunately, I think it's gonna go so fast, we're going to miss controlling it for a while, and it's going to be out of control. And then hopefully we can reel it back and take control of it and use it for what it can do, not for what, not a way to replace things that that humans do. Right. So
Skynet, people, it's right around the corner.
It is Skynet. I'm telling you.
Like, I see nothing wrong with using it as like a springboard of inspiration. Like, if you're stuck on an idea, just using that to kind of propel an idea forward or to build off on it instead of like literally copying and pasting it and there's your thing. Because there are a lot of people now selling classes about how you could be like a social media marketer. Mm-hmm. Not to get off topic, but then you use GPT chat.
Yeah.
To basically do your work for you. And at that point,
totally,
like, you're right. It's going to get to a point where, heck, it could even write movie scripts. I asked it to make a short script written by Jon Favreau about a tiger lost in a Star Wars universe, and it spat out a pretty decent story.
Yeah, I could see it as not something that does the work for you.
Right.
But there's definitely applications for it to improve businesses or improve, like, for example, in our business, like monitoring our workflow and figuring out ways to make our workflow better and things, I don't know, things like that. Like, I can see where artificial intelligence would help in some ways.
Even with job descriptions, even with like, hey, I'm trying to think of, I'm brainstorming an idea. These are all the things I'm thinking about. It could be a way to help organize ideas.
Totally. Yeah, I can see that. But but like you said, like, write this movie script for me like that. That's a little.
You should try it sometime for kicks and giggles just to see what happens. It's pretty
I haven't
impressive.
yet. I haven't yet.
Anyway.
So lots to come there. We'll see where that goes. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to mention also about a little thing about this book that just came out. One of, by far, the most anticipated book I've had in a long time. And it's not even a novel. It's one of these DK books I've mentioned on here several times, but it's this Star Wars Timelines. It finally came out at Celebration. And of course, I pre-ordered it and it got sent to me right away when it came out. It says from the time before the High Republic to the fall of the First Order. Now, as we know also, and is written by several authors. Let me make sure I mentioned them. Yeah, you've got Kristen Baver, Jason Fry, Cole Horton, Amy Rachu, and Clayton Sandell. So it says High Republic to fall of the First Order. Now, we know from Celebration, we've got introduced basically 9 eras of Star Wars now that we feel like are going to be where these stories land. So High Republic is not the earliest era anymore. You've got Dawn of the Jedi, and even though they recognize fully the Old Republic as far as a era, not necessarily the events yet. We'll see if the events make it in. But this says fall of the First Order on the timeline. It's rise of the First Order is considered that era.
Right.
And then beyond that is the new era of the new Jedi Order. So anyway, I think we're going to be talking about this book as we go for a long time because it's massive and it has everything in here. Now, there is a cutoff point I feel like I found. It does not include the last 2 shows.
Okay.
So Bad Batch Season 2 and Mando Season 3 are not in this book.
Makes sense.
But the end of Book of Boba Fett is.
Okay.
I think that was there? Oh, Andor is in here. I think Andor was the last thing before Mandalorian, right?
Bad Batch Season 2 would have been the last thing before Mandalorian.
Andor came out after Bad Batch, though, didn't it?
No, Bad Batch 2. Season 2.
I mean, yes, but that
right.
started at the same time.
Yeah.
I think Andor was the last thing before those two came out, right?
Right.
So those would have. So Andor's in here. So, but anyway, it is a well put together book. It really highlights. I can't really show too much, on here, but it basically has this. The top left corner has these color codes of the eras. And so it shows you what era it is. And then it has markers on years, and it shows the range of this page of events. And then there's a little line that has arrows on it that goes throughout the page, and you follow that line to follow the timeline of events. So it's really easy to follow, really good to read. It's got a lot of pictures, obviously, a lot of good description. And man, it's got everything. I'm kind of skimming through it right now, but I do want to just sit down and start from the beginning and just kind of page through and read. Because again, like the first thing in this is all the High Republic stuff. So I feel like reading that also will kind of put my mind in a better mode when I go into a High Republic book, because
right.
It's hard to follow, everything that's going on there for me in a way. Maybe not for you.
No, it's a little difficult.
So the thing I want to just briefly talk about, because like I said, there's going to be so much in here that we talk about later at some point. But if you go to the Wikipedia page of Star Wars Timelines, this book, there's already a list of continuity errors that, or not errors, but I would say contradictions that are introduced in the book now. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I just kind of wanted to mention that and get your thoughts on, because now you have, and maybe, here's my problem, Hannah, is that I put so much stock into the order of events in Star Wars. I'm so invested in all of these stories. I understand that it's got to be practically impossible to keep it all together. Now, you would think with the story group that they have and things like that, all these people, that they could figure it out. But I get it that there's so many things going on. You've got this author writing this novel. You got this writer writing this show. You got this writer writing this movie. You've got so many different things going on. It would be very difficult to keep it all together unless that's all you did. Mm-hmm. So there are going to be errors, and I guess I just have to kind of live with it just like everybody else does.
Right.
But I don't know. I guess I'm just kind of curious on as a Star Wars fan, how much does that bother you?
I mean, skimming through some of these, because I have the website pulled up on my computer.
Yeah.
Like skimming through some of these, I'm like, okay, that's the difference of 1 year. They got 2 years mixed up, or something slipped through the cracks there. I get that. I think those smaller ones I understand, because as you said, there's so much going on. It literally could boil down to one line in a single novel is what makes the biggest difference. So I totally get that. But something like what they did with Ventress, I mean, that's a pretty big one. So I think like some of these are very forgivable, but some of them are like, how did that one fall through the cracks?
Yeah, then it becomes a question of, well, I guess it comes down to which one. I guess, how do I say this? Like if there's two events, like, which I think the example you're giving is, this event took place before this event,
right?
But now this book is saying that they switched.
Yes,
right?
Which creates a huge problem.
Well, it does, and that's the question: is the problem? Does the problem fully contradict, and cancel one of them out? Basically,
I think in that example it does, because the way that timelines has, I mean, like it literally makes no sense. The way that they have it currently in the book. Like, I'm trying not to give away the spoiler.
No, we can. I think
Ventress dies.
Yes.
And all of a sudden, she's then back to life for right before Order 66 with Ahsoka.
Wait, so that's what it's saying, right? So it says timeline places the events of Dark Disciple to begin in 20 BBY, thereby claiming Ventress's role in a catch to a Jedi and the wrong Jedi occur after the start of the novel. Both of these episodes are dated 19 BBY. However, Ventress only loses her red lightsabers in those episodes, forcing her to use a yellow lightsaber in the novel.
Right.
Okay, so therefore timeline must be incorrect.
The other thing, too, is I don't think those two can be parallel episodes. Like, you can't parallel the novel with those episodes because she's constantly with what's-his-name the entire time.
Yeah, Quinlan,
thank you. So, that one, looking through these, that's the biggest one for me. But in general, like, I get it. There's a lot going on, and you need a team. And it could boil down to one line in a novel. But for something like that, I mean, that's pretty big. So my question is, are we getting a leak over from Marvel and we're going to get a multiverse Star Wars thing going on?
Oh, God. That would even make it more confusing.
I'm just saying.
I think what needs to be determined is basically what they did when George was in charge. So when George still had Star Wars, there was George canon, and then there was the expanded universe.
Right.
And the expanding universe was somewhat canon only until George did something else to decanonize it.
Right.
So, for example, there was all these backstories of Boba Fett, right?
Right.
There was a whole different backstory of Boba Fett until he made the prequels. Boba Fett is now the clone of Jango Fett. So all of that material was decanonized or deemed fake, not real.
Right.
So I'm kind of curious if maybe they have this, basically what the levels of canon, like if there's things that contradict each other, what takes precedent? I'm assuming live action takes precedent.
Yes.
Everything in the movies, everything in the shows. And then maybe you got probably the animation stuff.
TV
like
show,
Clone Wars, Rebels. And then you maybe have the novels and maybe the games and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
So in that sense, you would go with the Clone Wars here. For example, in this venture, say, this was what happened. So the novel possibly has to be adjusted, or you have to take what is of the novel, part of it, possibly decanonize it a little bit. I don't know. I don't know if that's the correct thing to do, but like you were saying, if something is significant and is needed for that story, you can't disregard it. I don't know. There's definitely there's definitely things that really mess with your mind there.
Absolutely. And who knows what they probably are going to do is they're going to send out updated ones, and it could be as soon as they see if they see some of the contradictions, they're going to go back, rewrite it, and reprint it 2.0. I mean, honestly, that's a great cash flow there.
Well, you have to update it eventually anyway, because you have to include newer stuff anyway. So you're right. I think there are a couple books like on my bookshelf there that new edition or second edition. So they do that. And I think you're right. I think they will find that there will be some errors, and hopefully they will change those. Now, another one real quick I wanted to bring up that I noticed in there is, so you have both Mandalorian seasons and you have Book of Boba Fett in there, right?
Yeah. So
we've been talking about, based on Favreau's recent comments, that the timeline of the show is over a course of a couple years, right?
Yeah.
Well, according to this book, the first 2 seasons and the Book of Boba Fett pretty much take place within 1 year. So it says 9 ABY, which is 5 years after Return of the Jedi, which is where we were told season 1 starts. Basically, it's saying that season 1 starts, it goes how it goes, and then season 2 starts, and then of course there's those events of Boba Fett entering in.
Yeah.
And then there's some crossover, and then by the end of towards the end of 9 ABY is where we find Boba Fett's in charge of Mos Espa, and Din gets Grogu back, and so that would mean he was not with Luke very long. Now, it could be a few months, but it was not a year or two that Jon Favreau is claiming, unless, again, this is wrong and it needs to be updated. Because
that's a pretty big one, too.
It's a huge one, because that's the first thing I went to look at was, does this book tell us how long he was with Luke? And it doesn't really say anything like that. It really does just, it has a page here where it talks about it talks about 9 BBY or ABY after the Battle of Yavin. And it literally, on this one page, takes you through actually it's a couple pages, takes you through, it's a couple pages. So it starts with, the Clan of Two, and then the Clash on Navarro. And then it goes through Jedi Quest, brings in Bo-Katan, brings in Ahsoka.
Jeez.
And then it goes through Grogu's rescue, and it goes through the new Dio in town, which is Boba Fett. It ends with the Book of Boba Fett, the battle there. Yeah. But at on the book, from one end to the other, it gives you the year, the start year and the end year.
Right.
And it just says 9 ABY the whole time. So it's saying this whole course of this year, these shows, those 2 seasons in Boba Fett happened in that 1 year. So, which, to be honest, I'm okay with, because to me, that's what I thought. I didn't think there was years in it, because it really wouldn't make sense, especially with Book of Boba Fett.
Yeah.
Which, did you finish yet?
No. At this point, I already know what happened.
You don't need to finish it now. With Book of Boba Fett.
It's spoiled for me. So what's the point?
Yeah, it's not. If you want to just see him riding a Rancor, that's kind of the only thing you want to.
I do remember I saw a clip of that on social media, and I was like, oh, come on.
Yeah, right. But you waited too long, so you.
Oh, okay. Well, that was actually 3 weeks, I think, after the episode came out.
Oh, really?
That's another debate. How long is too long for spoilers?
A week these days, I think. Unless you just need to try to avoid it then, because people are going to put it out there within. I mean, people are going to put it out there within a day or two. But I would say
the majority
after
of people,
a week, if you're on there and you're seeing it, that's your fault.
People tend to have the courtesy of saying "spoiler alert."
Yeah, not anymore. No, not anymore.
Dumb. Anyway.
But anyway, yeah, Book of Boba Fett, because it wouldn't make sense to me in a way if he's in Mando season 2, and then after Grogu gets saved at the end of season 2, that he goes to Tatooine. We see him take out Bib Fortuna. At that point, we know Grogu is with Luke. To me, it doesn't make sense that the conflict on Espa takes a year to 2 years, if that's what they're saying, with Grogu being with Luke, because they come back at the end of Book of Boba Fett. So that timeline was always weird to me. Like when Favreau said that, I don't think Favreau. I think he, of course, thought of it in his head. I don't think he really put it out on paper and said, "Is this possible that they're gone that long?" You know what I mean?
Right.
Like. So I tend to lean towards this book to say this is really what the timeline is.
Yeah, I think in that case, you are right. I think I feel like it's just going to be a case-by-case basis. It'll be interesting to see what changes they make in the future and what they keep the same.
Yeah. Agreed. I agree with that. So anyway, the book's out there. It's a great book to really reference. I think I want to really dive into it and really get to know some of these timelines and all these events. There's just a lot in there. I mean, just think about all the Star Wars content we have. I mean, it's got everything in here. It's pretty incredible. I got to imagine this thing took years to put together. So kudos to the writers of this one. Regardless of the errors, which are part of it, I get it. But like you said, make another version. I'll buy another version.
I mean, and Sorry, you go ahead.
No, I was just saying, update it and I'll buy another one.
I mean, like, but even looking at how many continuities there are, that's impressive how much they did get right.
100%, yes.
I mean, yeah. I mean, like, you take a look at the list and you're like, oh, that's a long list. But then you take a look at the book and you look at all of those times, you're like, on second thought, that's a pretty short list.
Yeah, because on each page, I mean, this page I'm looking at right now roughly has probably 20 entries like on this page.
Yeah.
And there's it looks like over 325 pages in this thing.
Yeah, kudos to you guys for doing a very good job.
100%. Yeah, totally agree. So anyway, I will be talking more about that book for sure. We're going to be referencing that book a lot as we go. Mm-hmm. Okay, just wanted to finish out. Well, let me talk about release schedules here. Also updated since we missed last week. Actually, this past week, May 2nd, a new High Republic novel, Path of Vengeance, hit your bookshelves. So go get that. Inquisitor, Rise of the Red Blade, July 18th. That is in a couple months. In fact, there was actually a full synopsis released of that now. So I will read that to you. And this is actually the first time I'm reading this too. So it says, when the Jedi Order falls, an Inquisitor rises. Padawan Iskat Akaris has dedicated her life to traveling the galaxy alongside her master, learning the ways of the Force to become a good Jedi. Despite Iskat's dedication, peace and control have remained elusive. With each setback, she feels her fellow Jedi grow more distrustful of her. Already uncertain about her future in the Jedi Order, Iskat faces tragedy when her master is killed and the Clone Wars engulf the galaxy in chaos. Now a general on the front lines contributing to that chaos, she is often reminded, trust in your training, trust in the wisdom of the Council, trust in the Force. Yet as the shadows of doubt take hold, Iskat begins to ask questions that no Jedi is supposed to ask, questions about her own unknown past, questions the Jedi Masters would consider dangerous. As the years pass and the war endures, Iskat's faith in the Jedi wanes. If they would grant her more freedom, she is certain she could do more to protect the galaxy. If they would trust her with more knowledge, she could finally cast aside the shadows that have begun to consume her. When the Jedi Order finally falls, Iskat seizes the chance to forge a new path of her own. She embraces the salvation of Order 66. As an Inquisitor, Iskat finds the freedom she has always craved, to question, to want. And with each strike of her red blade, Iskat moves closer to claiming her new destiny in the Force, whatever the cost. There you go.
Wow.
So that's interesting. We're getting what I don't think we've really ever gotten is the transition from Jedi to Inquisitor.
I like that. I like that a lot.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I do too. That's very interesting.
Yeah. And I love the phrase salvation.
Yeah, no. Yeah, that's interesting. I've never heard that before.
Gotta read that one.
Very interesting term. So that is from Delilah S. Dawson. If you don't remember her, she wrote Star Wars Phasma and Star Wars Black Spire, which we haven't done. Have you read that book at all?
Not yet.
Oh, okay. That was pretty good. That mainly introduces, what's her name? Vi Marathi, mainly.
Yes.
Also, who's also in Phasma.
Mm-hmm.
But Rise of the Red Blade coming July 18th. You've got Return of the Jedi, Certain Point of View, the 40th anniversary novel coming out September 5th. Crimson Climb about Kira and Crimson Dawn, October 10th. High Republic, Eye of Darkness, November 14th, which starts phase 3, and then High Republic, Defy the Storm, which ends it all. No, I'm sorry. Yeah, ends it all March of 2024. I think that's right. Did I think that's right? Yeah, I think that's right. For some reason, I think it goes longer than that, but maybe I'm wrong. Okay, comics. This past, actually yesterday, if you're listening to this on Star Wars Day yesterday, Star Wars 34, Darth Vader 33, Dr. Aphra 31, and Yoda number 7, as well as Lando number 1, which is the Return of the Jedi anniversary tie-in. All those came out May 3rd. Darth Vader 34 on May 10th next week. High Republic number 9, May 10th. And then on May 17th, Bounty Hunters 34. And that's all the releases so far in May. So there you go. Lots and lots of content coming.
Yes.
Okay. Star Wars Day, Hannah. Just wanted to acknowledge Star Wars Day, of course. We talk Star Wars constantly, you and I, on the show as well. Not just in person, but on the show. I always take Star Wars Day and always mention, I feel like I always mention that it seems like it grows more and more every year. Of course everybody puts out these, a lot of merchandise places puts out these discounts, come buy more merch for 25% off. And, in fact, I believe Galaxy's Edge tomorrow is doing a virtual queue for their merchandise.
Oh, dang.
They've got a lot of exclusive Star Wars Day stuff coming out. So there's a lot of people celebrating Star Wars. In fact, StarWars.com just did, there's a quiz on there that you can take that determines what movie you should watch on Star Wars Day.
Oh, no.
You should do it. Ask you a bunch of questions. Of course, it's funny because I got pretty much my favorite Star Wars movie. Well, it's not my favorite is probably Rogue One.
Yeah.
But the best Star Wars movie I think is out there is Empire Strikes Back.
Oh, hands down.
And Empire Strikes Back is the one that came up after
good.
I took the quiz. Yeah. So.
All right, I'll have to take it.
You should try that. Yeah, you should try that. So everybody else is interested, go do that. So I'll probably at some point tomorrow pop in Empire Strikes Back. But I guess I wasn't able to make it to Star Wars Celebration. I don't think you've been to a Star Wars Celebration yet, right? Yeah.
No.
Gosh, you got to go. As soon as it gets back in the States, we need to go.
Yes.
But I was just kind of thinking, just kind of reflecting a little bit on Star Wars Day and like Star Wars. I'm curious because I don't know if we fully have had this conversation since you've kind of been on the show now. But what to you, like, what is it about Star Wars that draws you in so much? What is it that keeps you interested in these stories and all the stuff that they're releasing out there? What makes you basically such a Star Wars fan?
That's a really, really good question. I think one thing for me growing up was there was a woman who fought. There was a woman who led. There was a woman who didn't need a guy to save her. I mean, like the only other example I can think of growing up was Mulan. So to see something that wasn't animated showing that was really cool. I think the other part is that I've never saw anything like it before. It was so different, so unique, so creative. So I think that's what initially drew me in, and that's just what and then just exploring that universe and expanding it is what kept me in it. Like, even though I'm not a fan of the movie in general, one thing I do appreciate about The Last Jedi is how much they explored the Force. How much more they went into it. Like they do in the books and Legends. So I think the exploration of this universe that like, we grew up in. It's just kind of cool that we learn something new every day about it. I think that's what keeps me in it. But what started off was it was something I've never seen before.
Mm-hmm.
And, I could look and there was a woman there fighting. She didn't need any help and she was a leader.
Yeah.
So
what was your first, was the original movie your first?
A New Hope.
A New Hope, really? Okay.
Yeah, that was my first introduction into Star Wars. Before Dad had me, it was leading up. Well, no, it wasn't exactly leading up to Revenge of the Sith, but I remember seeing, Phantom Menace in the box office, but I wasn't that interested. I saw that Attack of the Clones was in theaters, and that's when I started getting intrigued about it.
Mm-hmm.
And my dad said, well, we got to start at the beginning. That's when we started with A New Hope. Did 4, 5, 6, and then went back to 1 and 2. Now, because kids at my school talked, I already knew the spoilers. I already knew who Darth Vader was and all of that.
Yeah.
But it was still so cool to see that moment of reveal.
Yeah.
What about you?
Well, I think a lot of times, look, I've been doing this show now for 10 years, right? I think listeners that have been on here a long time have come to understand that I'm a huge fan of the Jedi side of things, the light side of things, the good, the overcoming evil.
Mm-hmm.
But, and maybe I haven't said this completely out loud on here, but, I'm a pretty spiritual guy. I believe in God, and I believe in, a bigger force. And that's what really drew me into Star Wars, is the idea of the Force. The idea that there's something out there that you can connect with. And obviously the best part is it can give you powers. It can help you fight evil that way. That part always drew me in, of course, and I'm a big sci-fi fan. Just the exploration of a galaxy and the stars has always intrigued me. Even before I was introduced to Star Wars, I was big on, seeing the stars and learning about astronomy and all that stuff. So you combine that together, and of course I'm in it. I'm diving in, and then you have such a good storyline because, the original trilogy, that's all I had for a long time. Mm-hmm. And just that story. I mean, the original trilogy is really, really good as far as, learning about this Skywalker family. But in the end, I think, especially in the last couple of years, I've come to really appreciate Star Wars the way that Filoni describes it. And it was that behind the scenes, I think it was the gallery episodes of The Mandalorian, the first season. In one of those episodes, he talked about Star Wars is about family and hope. That's what it comes down to. If you can, and honestly, I'm also a big family guy, person. I believe in family. And even my friends that I grew up with and the ones I know now, I consider them family. It's all, and if you look at Star Wars, the way he described it, it's like everything is based on family. The original trilogy, that family group there with Han, Luke, Leia, Chewbacca, and the droids, the prequels, you have Anakin and Padme and Obi-Wan. You could look at every Mandalorian. You have that family, Rebels, that family, Clone Wars, that family. It doesn't have to be blood relatives. It's just the collection of people that care about each other and work together and try to make things better. And it is something that has been carried from George's creation, which is phenomenal. And so in the end, I think, that's what I think I've come to appreciate most about it, is the family side of it. And of course the hope that that evil can be overcome, that good will prevail, and that you just have to, like the Force says, you have to trust in it, and you have to let it guide you. You know, it's very powerful stuff. I mean, so that's what I'm into it now. Of course, not every story, you know, when you get into something like Andor, doesn't have a lot of Force connections and things like that. But again, there's family there. There's family aspect of him, his friends, his adopted mother, and the people that he meets in the prison. You know, Melshi. I mean, there's family that gets built, and then of course, then you have the family that gets built in Rogue One from all these different places, right? So I don't know. It's pretty phenomenal, Star Wars. How much it's grown, how much, you know, it's been it's a massive part of this whole world now, right? So yeah.
I think there's one more word you can add to hope and family, which I totally agree with you. And you saying that is like, oh, that's definitely another part that keeps me in there. I think redemption is another huge theme, and that no one is beyond redemption. No one is too far gone.
Agreed. Yeah, agreed.
And I think that's the other thing, because, you know, you and I share a lot of the same beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
So I think with that as well, it's like, you know, it like, that's a powerful thought.
Yeah.
That no matter what bad things you've done in life, you're not, like, redemption you can still be redeemed. So yeah, it's I think that's also what makes Star Wars last so long, is because it has those core themes that so many people can relate to, especially the idea of family and the fact that family doesn't have to be blood. Family is the family you choose.
That's right. That's exactly right.
So
yeah, because there's a lot of that in Star Wars, and I never really thought of it like that until Filoni said that. You know, it was there. It's pretty obvious, but until he described it to that room full of directors, you can see the lights go off in their head, like, oh my gosh, you're right. You know, and of course he's the one. You know, he's the one carrying on George's legacy, right? He's become the next George Lucas in a sense. So phenomenal stuff, you know. Like you, I hope everybody can celebrate Star Wars Day today and appreciate it a little bit more. Go watch it, go read it, do whatever you can, and let's keep going and being positive about it, you know. Because we're in a lucky time right now that we're getting all this stuff.
Yes.
We're in a very lucky time. So I don't know. Anything else on that?
Well, quick side note, you mentioned being fascinated with space. I'm also fascinated with space. Growing up, I actually went to space camp, where we went to like a NASA headquarters with a bunch of kids, and we learned how to be astronauts and things like that. So yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Space.
That's pretty cool. Yeah.
Well, I think the other fascinating thing about space is we know so little about it.
We don't know anything about it, I don't think. Totally right.
We know barely anything. So, you know, I guess like growing up, you think, oh man, so in a galaxy far, far away, there are laser swords and there's something called the Force.
I know it.
So.
It's, just the idea of traveling to a different planet like you would travel down the street, you know, that's phenomenal to me. Yeah. It's amazing to me. It's mind-blowing to me.
That's good stuff. It's good stuff that I think is going to last for years, especially because of their core values and themes.
Yes, very, very good core values. And, you know, a lot that my kids are, you know, learning from as well. I feel like they're appreciating it as much as I did when I was younger, and I mean, plus my youngest right now, 8. She's into it, but not so much. My older one, 13, she definitely, I think she's starting to realize how much that she's getting from Star Wars as far as like content, because, she knows when I was younger, it wasn't this often that you were getting this stuff. And, she's starting to get curious about the comics a little bit, so
Aww.
Right now she's all about the shows, really into the shows, but I got to get her reading some of this stuff too. I think she's going to be blown away by it.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Well, let me read some comments from our last episode here before we close out. Thrawn Addict, of course, on our New Eras episode a couple weeks ago, he says, great episode, Dave and Hannah. I loved it when you deep dive into discussing the eras of Star Wars. I'm like you, Dave. I like clear timelines and big supporter of keeping everything canon as much as possible. The timeline era names are great, but do hope they delve into the eras they haven't told many stories in. I'm happy for Dave Filoni to continue to make things in Empire and New Republic era, but would like other creators to focus on before prequel era stuff or after Rise of Skywalker. Yeah, I think we both agree with that, right?
Oh, yeah. Definitely.
Yeah, and so Thrawn Addict, you should get this timeline books, because if you're big on timelines like I am, I think you're going to love this thing. He also says Chapter 23 of Mandalorian was brilliant. Love longer episodes, and when they do good stories, it goes so quick. Seeing the Shadow Council was amazing, and can see they always setting up Thrawn, which is exciting. I'm with you. I would love to see Sloane, but I know at the end of third Aftermath book, doesn't Sloane travel to the unknown regions on a pirate cruiser? I could be wrong, but if she is, she could be with Thrawn already.
Mm-hmm.
That is correct. She is in the unknown regions. Yes.
Well,
by the time
probably.
this. Yep. I forgot timeline-wise when the Battle of Jakku takes place at the end of the Aftermath books, and if that lines up with when we are in Mandalorian. I feel like you need to check the timeline for this for me. Battle of Jakku is 1 year after Return of the Jedi.
Yes.
So it is 4 years before the start of The Mandalorian.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there's like a year. The Aftermath books basically cover that year between Return of the Jedi and the Battle of Jakku. So, which is interesting because, according to if you just watch the movies, you would think the war ended Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
When in fact it didn't actually, end until a year later. Finishes up by saying, rest of episode was fantastic, great action, and the end was so sad, but could see it coming. I feel like the spy has to be the armor because I don't know who else it could be. Either way, so excited for the finale, but gutted it's nearly finished already, and we have to wait another 2 years for season 4. That is true. That is true. Let's see. Another comment on... Let's see where. Oh, this is Thrawn on. Okay, so this is Thrawn on our last. That was 2 episodes ago. This is our last episode on the finale. Great discussion and review as always. Finale Mandalorian was a lot of fun. Had great action throughout, and really liked that the episode had a nice ending. But in some ways, I felt underwhelmed. I thought the cloning twist was good. Gideon cloning himself was a bit of a cop-out that they didn't do anything with the clones after hinting at it for 3 seasons. I think the Shadow Council Necrominder project is about cloning the Emperor, if I'm not mistaken. I think you're definitely right about that. Was gutted that the Darksaber was destroyed, but did like Bo-Katan's comeback line about Mandalorians being better together. Was also slightly disappointed that there was no more hints of Thrawn or the Shadow Council at the end of the episode. I agree with that. other than these little critiques, was happy to see Din and Grogu's happy ending and liked it that they brought IG-11 back. It pretty much became the Ranger of the New Republic, so it would be interesting to see what happens next season or in other shows or films in the future. Very true, very true.
Yes.
And then he does do a mention to us on our Dark Temple Beyond the Saga.
Oh.
He says, great review. It's been a long time since I read this comic, but do remember enjoying it, but being disappointed it didn't tie in more to the game. Mm-hmm. Luckily, both of you discussing it has reminded me about the plot details and refreshed my memory. Looking forward to your Battle Scars review. May the Force be with you. Yes, I will be almost finished with. I'm a little more halfway through, so I should be done with that here within the next week. So yeah, good stuff, Thrawn Addict. Thanks for commenting as always. Let us know what you thought about Visions. Mm-hmm. And hope you have a great Star Wars day. Okay. All right, let's go celebrate Star Wars Day.
Woohoo! Empire Strikes Back.
Yep. Yeah. I'll put that in probably tonight. So to celebrate as well, we've got this show out, and you should be able to find a council session with me and Martin also today. So that is out there. So I put a couple shows out there for you all to enjoy. Don't want to take too much time because I want you guys to celebrate Star Wars Day with your other things. But hey, those of you looking for us, got a couple shows you can listen and watch. I'll put the council sessions also on the podcast feed. So if you want to listen to it, you can as well. So you can do that. Thanks, Hannah, as always.
Thanks, Dave. Happy Star Wars Day.
Happy Star Wars Day. Happy Star Wars Day, everybody. Take care. We'll see you next week. May the Force be with you.